Good morning. I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of the Zoning and Planning Committee. Today is May 21st. I'm Lisa Bender. I chair the committee. I'm joined by Council members Reich, Goodman, and Andrew Johnson. Council President is ill today, and I think we'll expect Council Member Warsami to join us. But we do have a quorum. So today we have 5 items. I'll start with the consent agenda, which is items 3 through 5. Item number 3 is an application for an alley vacation at 420 East Hennepin Avenue. Item number 4 is approving an application by Sherman Associates to rezone parcels at 800 West Broadway and 2019 Aldrich Avenue North to convert an existing building into a mixed-use building and to create an accessory parking lot. And item number 5 is referring to staff ordinances amending our code of ordinances related to skyway design requirements. And I should note that on item number 5, the original intention when this subject matter introduction was given was related to specifically to bird-safe skyway design, but in discussions, staff has found that there is interest in looking more broadly at our skyway review process, and so this staff direction includes a more broad look at skyway design. So on item number 3, I think there's still some remaining questions related to some community desire for some public space improvements nearby. So I'm going to move to delay that item 1 cycle. And so we can have some more opportunity for that discussion to take place. And then I'm going to move for items 4 and 5 to be approved and see if there is any discussion on items 3 through 5. Seeing none, all those in approval, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. And those 3 items carry. Now we'll return to the public hearing items 1 and 2. Item number 1 is considering an appeal of decision of the Planning Commission related to a site plan review for 300 Washington Avenue, which is the Depot Renaissance, and this is really related to a curb cut and the pedestrian access there near a vehicular curb cut.
Good morning, Chair Bender and committee members. The application that is before you is obviously, as you mentioned, an appeal. It pertains to a project for the Depot Renaissance Hotel. This is a project that's been approved by both the Heritage Preservation Commission and the City Planning Commission. And in essence, the proposal was to allow a 6-story addition to the building and then an infill addition where the existing water park currently is, as well as adding some amenities to the site. The proposal did not include any alterations to the Milwaukee Road Depot building or freight house, and those are both locally and nationally designated. So the appeal was specific to 1 condition of approval. There were 5 that were approved by the Planning Commission at the public hearing, and it was, as you mentioned, related to the curb cut width. So very quickly, we've had many different discussions with Public Works staff and CPED staff since that condition was adopted by the Planning Commission and since the appeal was filed, and there has been a lot of back and forth, and there was additional information that was furnished by the applicant, including numerous different truck turning movements and templates. Those have been forwarded to you for consideration and review. As you know, the original condition of approval, as listed in the background that you have in front of you, basically stated that a curb cut width would be reduced from 19 feet to 16 feet on the northerly end, 45 feet to 20 feet, and then making some improvements for the sidewalk along 5th Avenue South. So this is the new proposal that both CPED staff and Public Works have come to an agreement on. Again, the reason that we were looking at reducing the curb cut width in this location is that currently it's a 20-foot curb cut and a 45-foot curb cut, and that specific public realm is pretty inhospitable. So we were trying to make some improvements related to that. Given the additional information that was furnished in order for this site really to function smoothly, they do need a wider curb cut than the 20 feet. And so the consensus here is that the 45-foot curb cut that would be the southerly curb cut on this site would be reduced to 34.5 feet. And the existing slip lane or the southerly curb cut would remain at 19 feet. Originally, the applicant had agreed to reduce that to 16 feet, but once we reviewed again all the templates and maneuvering that was going on the site, it seemed wise to maintain that at the existing width. So basically, the recommendation that we do have before you is a modification of that original condition of approval. And what it states is basically maintaining that northerly curb cut at a width of 19 feet and then reducing the southerly curb cut width from 45 feet to 34.5 feet. And again, that's an alteration from the 20 feet. All while elevating the public sidewalk in this location so that it ties into inflows at one continuous grade along the street. And then the last component is a new piece, which is basically stating that the curb cut shall be designed in compliance with city standards. So I'll close here. If you have questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Can you show us a picture of, again, did you have that?
Yep.
Okay, great. And so the final, yep, okay.
So basically, what we had recommended originally was that this slip lane be reduced in width from 19 feet to 16 feet.
Yep.
Upon further review, because of the way that they're maneuvering on site, it is essential that that be the 3 additional feet. So 19 feet is appropriate. The bigger discussion point, of course, was what to do with that southerly curb cut. It currently is at a width of 45 feet, and then we've got a weird situation with the public sidewalk in that location. So all of that will be elevated at one continuous grade. But what our recommendation is that it would be allowed to be 34.5 feet to allow basically 3 lanes, one in, one out, and one that's flexible, depending upon whether it's an event that they're trying to get a lot of traffic into the site at one time, or a lane that flips when they're trying to have people leaving the site.
And where did we land on the depth of that? It actually looks like maybe it did get deeper than than last time I saw this.
Correct. The original recommendation for staff was for that to be 20 feet. We thought that it could be funneled. We felt that there was enough room initially for them to be able to funnel the different lanes from ingress and egress down to 2 lanes. So basically they would have one in, one out. Based on the volumes that we looked at, and then also based on some truck turning templates that showed that if basically a truck is accessing the site from Washington and going south, there was additional width that would be needed in that location. So really, when conversation, where the conversation last ended was that 45 feet was completely inappropriate. We weren't going to support that. And anytime a curb cut width is over 24 feet, it requires additional documentation from the applicant. They need that. So basically, the negotiation came between 30 and 35 feet to allow 3 lanes of traffic, again, one in, one out, and one that was a flexible lane in and out off of 5th.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff? Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Let's see if anyone would like to speak on item number 1. Would anyone like to speak? Last call. With that, I'll close the public hearing. So I will move approval of this. I really appreciate how much staff really went to bat for making sure that this was a good design, and I think that this is a reasonable compromise. I really appreciate actually this addition of what really feels like more of a pedestrian path through here, that gives more of an extension of the sidewalk. So even though there is, frankly, more curb cut than I would have preferred, I think that still gives that sense of pedestrian safety. It creates a place where the cars are moving back and forth, that they feel like they probably are in a pedestrian space. So I think this is a reasonable conclusion, and I appreciate the folks, the applicants as well, for sitting down with staff many times, I know, to get to this conclusion. So any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in approval, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that carries. Okay, so moving to item number 2, this is an appeal filed of the City Planning Commission's decision approving a site plan review application for a 33-unit building at 721, 729 8th Street Southeast, and I'll start with staff there. And this is the question here is about the roof.
The roof, yes. Chair Bender, you summarized the applications that were decided by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission and staff were supportive of all 3 of those applications. And that one condition of approval being that the pitched roof on the apartment building shall be replaced with a flat roof. Have the 3 parcels, the subject site highlighted there. Once again, showing context just 2 blocks west of 35W. The design that the applicant has proposed. And this was provided by the applicant, showing the comparison difference between the pitched and the flat roof. So the basis of the staff recommendation to have that flat roof is from section 531.20 of the zoning code, which states that the form and pitch of roof line shall be similar to the surrounding buildings. And the intent of this standard is to help new construction relate to its surroundings. And here, I want to provide an aerial showing where the flat roof structures are in comparison to the proposed building. The proposed site is, the project site is highlighted in red. All those parcels that are outlined in blue are either flat roof or slight, a low pitch roof, not a gabled or a hip roof as the applicant is proposing. Also wanted to provide just a comparison provided by staff of what the pitch roof structure would look like in relation to its neighbors, that being the top version, and a example of what the project would look like with a flat roof. The applicant, just to want to make a few statements to what the applicant has stated in their reason for the appeal, and that's on page 5 of your report. Just a few things. One, their analysis states that 85% of the buildings in the studied area have pitched roofs. They included all the single-family and two-family dwellings in that analysis and excluded those industrial buildings that are immediately to the north. I showed that already. Second, the applicant references a neighboring building, apartment building, having a pitched roof, and that being a model or something that they look to for this project. That being the Marcy Park Apartments, which is 2 blocks to the east of the project site and across Interstate 35W. Third, the applicant stated that the neighborhood provided unanimous support of the pitched roof, and have a letter that was submitted by the co-chair of Marcy Homes just a few minutes before the Planning Commission meeting. I'll just read the highlighted part. Regarding the pitched roof scheme, which was presented at our March land use meeting, we did not unanimously support any of the formal or aesthetic aspects of the project, which has been claimed by the developer in a letter to you. We only supported the 2 variances and asked that the developer consider a flat roof. There was a consensus among the land use members that a flat roof is better suited for the building on the site, and we would support your recommendation in item C5 of the staff report for a flat roof. And then finally, one of the items listed by the applicant is that a flat roof will add significant cost to the rents of those that will be living here. And CPED checked with our colleagues in building plan review, as well as a few contractors to get a better understanding of that, and all said that a pitched roof may be a little less expensive than a flat roof, but they questioned that large difference that the applicant states will happen, or it would be a lot more expensive with a flat roof. Also, all the people that we talked to said that there are a lot of variables to consider, being the contractor, the materials used, and we feel that if cost savings was such a large, if there was such a large difference in cost, that we would see a lot more pitched roofs for apartment buildings than we do today, which is not typical of those apartment buildings that are designed in Minneapolis. So I'll be happy to answer questions that you may have for staff.
Any questions? Okay. We will open the public hearing for this item and would invite anyone up who would like to speak.
Good morning, council members. My name is William Wells. I am the project architect on the proposed housing project. Today, we're asking the City Council to support our appeal and remove condition 5 of approval, which requires the applicant to change the pitch roof to a flat roof. This is a condition of approval that zoning staff added to our project, and we feel that it exceeds the zoning code requirements and is counter to our goal of building an affordable housing project on 8th Street. The housing project before you today came out of a zoning code change that the committee made recently, in which you lowered the parking requirement for developers proposing studios in the university area. Presently within the university area in Ward 3, specifically in Marcy Homes, it is extremely difficult to find mid-market new construction that is affordable or mid-market. Most of the housing projects in this area of Ward 3 are extremely high-end housing projects that have heated underground parking and swimming pools and the really high-end luxury housing, which is great, but there's not a lot of mid-market, like affordable new studios. So this project is addressing that market demand in the area. Zoning staff has not been receptive to this and has not been a partner with us in building an affordable housing project. All of their recommendations as we've worked with them have been extremely expensive conditions. These requirements will lead the developer to either adding more density to the project or raising the rents. And raising the rents, increasing the construction cost is really our main concern at this point. We don't think it's fair for the tenants to have to pay more money for this flat roof that zoning staff wants. We also think this is a very significant change to the construction system. I did meet with the neighborhood group, the land use committee. At that time, that is the model and the drawings that I showed to the neighborhood group, the land use committee. They did support the project unanimously. They asked me at that meeting to add more brick and stone to the front of the building. That was their condition of approval. That is very expensive to do that, but the owner and I talked about it and we decided to do it. It's not required under the zoning code to do a building out of brick and limestone, but it was really important to the neighbors. So we did that. We changed the front of the building and we added a lot more brick and limestone. The email that came through right before the Planning Commission, I think that came from the neighborhood board, who I did not meet with, and I'm not entirely sure what the politics are of the neighborhood because I don't know what happened at the board level. I only know what happened with the residents that I met with and the residents that spoke in support of the project at the Planning Commission. That's who I met with. It might be that there's just a wide range of opinions about the project. We support those opinions and we're trying to listen to the neighborhood's concerns and prioritize those concerns. Also, it's important to note that there were 3 adjacent property owners around this project that did write letters of support for the design of this project, and that was in the Planning Commission's packet. The roof that we are proposing, if you could show that graphic, most of the buildings on 8th Street, all the housing on 8th Street has a pitched roof. 85% actually of the buildings, whether it's multifamily or single family homes, do have pitched roofs. Yes, the buildings to the north, the industrial buildings that are not on 8th Street, yes, some of those buildings do have flat roofs. But what zoning staff didn't tell the Planning Commission is that there's a development proposed for that site, and that is all turning into housing in the future. I think that's important to know that. But everything to the south of us is older historic homes with pitched roofs, and that is really your perception of 8th Street as you drive down 8th Street. It is the pitched roofs. A couple last things. Just from an aesthetic standpoint, purely the aesthetics, we think the flat roof with the parapet is a less aesthetically appealing building. It looks a little too generic, and I think it makes the building look taller as you walk by it on the sidewalks. And that's another reason that we are against the flat roof. I wanted to point out something that Councilmember Bender said at the Planning Commission, which I thought was right on point. And I think it's important for the public and the council members today to hear what Councilmember Bender said. She said, quote, "It's important for us to make sure we're getting market rate housing that isn't only luxury cost housing. So I think when you look at a project like this and we are requiring more expensive materials and a more expensive construction technique, all of those things drive up the cost of construction. And it's something we want to be cognizant of," end quote. That is exactly the issue of what's happening. This is a construction technique that is much more expensive. It's a commercial roofing system. I've got to do a stair tower to the roof. I've got to increase the amount of structure in the system. It's very expensive, and it is more expensive than the pitched roof. And we're concerned that that is going to lead to a cost of increased rent on the project, which we're proposing as an affordable housing project. So if you support the appeal, then you're supporting an affordable housing project in this part of the city, and you're supporting us doing a building that looks historic and looks like the other buildings on 8th Street. Are there any questions?
We do have a question from Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have 2 questions, actually. What is the actual overall increase in cost in numbers? You've had now weeks between the Planning Commission and now. to research the actual cost? What is the number?
We think it's about $70,000.
Okay, and what's the overall project cost?
It's $3 million.
And what is there are 33 units, correct?
Yes.
And what is the rent range?
You'd have to ask the owner. I don't exactly know the exact amount, but he will stand up and speak to that.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Any other questions? I should note, so that is a very accurate quote and statement that I stand behind. I did vote along with the other planning commissioners, though, to support staff's recommendation here, and partly because I was not convinced that the cost, I had this question about how much is the actual cost increase for the project. So, okay, so moving along, if the owners would like to come up and speak, and then we'll continue along with anyone else who would like to speak at the public hearing. Sure. Anyone who would like to speak, just state your name and address for the record, please.
Casey Dinan. I live at 1120 8th Street, just about 3.5 blocks away from the project. I work for a student group at University of Minnesota called St. Paul's Outreach, and then I also work with the Catholic Newman Center, St. Lawrence there, right in Dinkytown. And so I get the opportunity of working with hundreds of U of M students, and I live in the neighborhood, and so I'm really kind of invested just in this part of the city. And I just had some concerns that I wanted to voice just from my interactions with the students. And I understand that we want to keep a balance of having architectural harmony and not, kind of unintentionally pricing people out of the neighborhood. And that's kind of what I see already going on with students, that there's not a lot of this mid-market affordable housing, and it's causing students to start to kind of try and bend the rules in unsafe ways. And I just haven't seen. So this isn't being like this is a reality. This is affecting U of M students, and I know this neighborhood's had a very long-standing relationship with the university, and I think we want to continue to keep this in the balance, and particularly students, with these studio apartments, these single units. This is something that is, I see with certain students, whether it's they're dealing with physical or mental health issues, learning disabilities. This is something that becomes, having a place where they can go that's affordable. It's important that we have these options in Dinkytown, and so this is just a concern that I have, and that any cost that's added to the tenant, which is likely going to be a University of Minnesota student, is already a burden, and we're already pricing out a lot of, and I don't need to get into the whole student debt issue that's facing our larger community and our youth that are coming out of college. And so and then just on just a personal, I would, just as someone who lives in the neighborhood, I would just like to see more, owners of buildings that are from the area. That, I know we have a lot of money coming in from foreign investment and all over the country. And so I would, just as a resident, I'd like to see more owners, and I'd like to see us make that possible. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Would anyone else like to speak?
Hello, good morning. My name is Tim Harmson. My wife and I own Dinkytown Rentals, and we've been doing this since we were in college, since '87. And we've got about 700 bedrooms on campus, and we've built different stuff down there, none of the really big things. We really have always looked for ways to provide something that functions like a single-family home. And we've done some lodges, and we've done some different developments that are smaller. But we've noticed in the last few years that nobody was really doing anything for studios and one bedrooms that one person can just rent and live in and work. All these people in Northeast, all that are working and in the restaurants, they need places to live. And there's quite a few older, low-rise apartment buildings that are worn out. They just kept being recycled, and all the new construction is this either high-end student housing with 3 or 4 bedrooms, or really high-end stuff like the Cozy and the stuff along the river, where you're at $1,400 or $1,500 or $1,600 a month for a one-bedroom apartment. We're trying to deliver a studio apartment at $750 a month, And it's going to have just going back to the simple ideas of a central boiler. Each unit will have its own air conditioning unit that's in the wall. Real simple layout, no exercise rooms, no underground parking. We've got a plan where if you come in on the main floor, they've got a bike room so that they can have easy access to their bikes. They can come right in and use them. So many of the buildings we've looked at, the bike parking is down in a garage, down somewhere. It's not visible. And so we've designed this building with studios at 750, one bedrooms at 840. We've got 840 as a one bedroom, 920 for a one bedroom with a den, and about $1,000 for a two bedroom. And we can do it, and we can make the numbers work. When you talk about the cost of the roof, it's kind of another thing. You know, we started this out and we're working the numbers. Well, there's $50,000 worth of park fees. We added brick to the building. It's a whole nother fee, and it just keeps adding and adding. And although the $70,000 for the roof, it seems like on a $3 million project that's not that much. It's all adding up. It's all adding up. And then when you go to the bank and you try to get a loan and they look at your sworn construction statement, then it's something different. You have to put in more money. And I think the way I've calculated it, we would have to raise our studios to a little over $800. So maybe it's maybe like the $820 or $830 for a studio. Well, although that's only $70 more, that's a big difference from $750 to $820. And it just goes up from there. So anyways, plus I like the pitched roof. This is Minnesota. We have snow, right? You know, everything has pitched roofs. Haven't we learned that? And then all of the new buildings, they seem to drop these boxes in these neighborhoods where all the houses around are pitched roof, and all of a sudden you have this modern multicolored box. So, all right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Any questions? Okay, would anyone else like to speak? Anyone else? Last call. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. See if my colleagues have any other questions for staff. I'm really torn about this one, so I'll also see if anyone has a motion. Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't really have a question. I just want to kind of give you a sense of how I see the numbers from this assertion that this is an affordable housing project. These units, 33 units at $3 million, is about $90,000 a unit to build. That's dirt cheap. I mean, we're building, so that means there's some give there for the developer, for sure. Most affordable housing projects built in Minneapolis that are affordable to people at 30 and 50% of the Metroid median are being built between $150,000 and $225,000 per unit. So you're able to build these for $90,000. So someone's making some money here. In addition to that, you're generating, given your rent that you just gave me, about $335,000 in rent on these units per year. And you're only going to have a mortgage of like $3 million. So I guess I don't buy the financial argument. I also don't think $750 for studio is affordable. That's a mid-range. An affordable studio would be like in the $500 to $600 a month rent. So these aren't really truly affordable. They might be affordable compared to everything else you own on campus at Dinkytown Rentals. And I looked at your website, and you own some newer buildings and you own some older buildings, and many of them are 5 bedrooms. So this might be different in your portfolio of projects. But I think you're building this pretty cheap at $90,000 a unit. I wish developers that were building affordable in Minneapolis that were subsidizing could build it at that rent rate, because they can't. So I'm not sure if I think that we should be saying do it this way because we think it looks better, we think it fits in better, but I'm not. That's a different issue, and that's what we're here to analyze. But I don't think that we should be saying this is affordable housing, therefore they shouldn't build it to look consistent with the next door neighbor. Because, I mean, at $3 million, if you're generating $335,000 a year in rent, you'd have that mortgage paid off in like 10 years. So you're in it to make money. But whether or not we have the ability to force you to increase the cost because we like the aesthetic better, that's really the issue that's in front of us. So I just want to put out there the kind of affordable housing analysis. I don't buy that argument. I think if I were you, I would have made the argument that you don't have the right to tell me what it looks like.
Thank you for those comments. I think this is a really important issue because, obviously this isn't a subsidized project that will stay at any specified level of affordability for over time. But, it is one of the only small numbered unit projects we've seen come through since I took office. We don't see a lot of these sort of 30 and 40 unit buildings in the neighborhoods outside of downtown. And I think actually Mr. Wells pointed out that the parking reduction is partly what made this project possible. And I think tonight we have a open house for our broader parking reform discussion. And I think we will actually start to see more of these mid-range, smaller scale development projects as we reform our parking requirements. So it's certainly not a 15-year fixed percent AMI affordable project, but it is a different type of project than we have seen come through. And I am cognizant of not making it harder for folks to build these smaller, lower mid-market projects in the city. And we did require higher quality materials on this project. And so, I am sensitive to the fact that as we create regulatory barriers and add costs to things, it does impact the overall cost of projects. I don't really have a strong feeling about the roof aesthetics. I'm kind of on that piece. Like, I don't really know that the council should be saying we don't want any pitched roofs in the city of Minneapolis or in this neighborhood. I kind of agree that argument isn't as compelling to me. So that's where I'm at with this. And Councilmember Frye is here, represents this part of town. So Councilmember Frye.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I understand and agree with both, actually, Councilmember Bender's opinions as well as Councilmember Goodman's opinions. What I would say about the affordable piece is, while it is not a subsidized project, what we are seeing right now, specifically in Dinkytown and sort of southeast Marcy Homes, is a dramatic difference between the luxury apartments and the non-luxury, which are going up or already put up. And the big difference is actually in who's paying for it. When mom and dad are subsidizing rent and they are making $500,000 or $600,000 a year, you put in a swimming pool, you put in some fancier materials, you have some more square footage, and you live in a really nice building. It's not as much of a burden if you ask them to add a couple of additional amenities. Whereas when mom and dad are not paying for it, which is often the case with some of these smaller buildings, we've already asked them to put in the additional brick. The parking minimization helped out, but while $70,000 for I think you said a $3 million project is not a huge percentage of the overall cost, it does add up. And let's say I think you said it was $70 or $80. I might question that as well, but even if it was only $40. That is a difference, especially when you're on a fixed income. I think you said it was $70 or $80 for the $800 units. I would guess I would wonder what it would be for the $1,000 units, which have 2 bedrooms and you're paying $500 a pop. So I don't have a really strong feeling either about the aesthetic, but the affordable piece I would weigh more heavy. So I would shift slightly in the favor of granting the appeal.
Councilmember Goodman.
It's actually $2,131 per unit additional cost if you calculate it over the 33 units. But I'm going to move to grant the appeal because I want to stick to what's in front of us. I mean, I don't think you made a very good argument. Next time, I probably wouldn't make that argument that it's affordable to a bunch of people who know something about this. But I don't think we have the right to tell you what kind of roof to put on when it's kind of half a dozen of one or the other. I'm sorry. I feel bad for our staff, but I don't want to be the person to make it more difficult generally for developers to build in the city. And that's what we're here to determine. And if this was in my ward and I had a constituent who was upset saying, tell me about a flat roof versus a pitched roof, and it was kind of half a dozen of one or the other, I think I would side on behalf of the person doing the development. And so while I didn't think you had a very good argument, I agree with you on principle. That you're building in the city privately. You're doing a good thing, whether it's affordable or not. I don't think it's our role to tell you to spend another whatever it is on this project. So that's my opinion. Everyone might not agree with me, but I just kind of have a little bit more of that less regulatory free market approach on this particular issue.
All right, on the motion, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in approval, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay, and that carries. The appeal is granted. And we should also direct staff to prepare findings with that. And with that, we are adjourned.